All right, good morning from sunny Miami. We're going to be doing a full flight today from Miami to Key West in the Mooney M20R from Carenado. So this is going to be partially just a flight for fun because there is some real eye candy out there. It's going to be partially a M20R tutorial and partially an IFR flying tutorial, all wrapped into one little package. I will put chapters in it, so if you want to skip around to stuff, feel free to do so. Usually I say skip the cruise phase, but in this plane there's not much of a cruise phase on this particular trip. It's generally around 45 minutes or so from wheels up to wheels down. So we'll see what happens today. Here we are in GA parking, although we've got some pretty big airplanes for GA. Then again, this is Miami International. I don't know how much real GA they get in and out of here in the real world. But we're cold and dark. We're going to start up from scratch. I'm going to get this out of the way. I'm going to get our mixture full rich. I'm going to get our prop all the way in. We're going to go ahead and hit the master switch. Check our fuel here. Check our clearance. Okay. We're going to put this into 7,000. This altitude part of this autopilot is something I'm still struggling with. And one thing about this, I love how they say O-N-E. At any rate, one thing about this particular airplane is it doesn't automatically put the squawk code in for you. So before I do that, let's get the engine started. Mixture's rich, fuel selected, props full. All right, we should be ready to go here. Oh, I probably should have hit the fuel pump. All right, so in this airplane, the lighting is all up here. We're only going at 7,000 feet, so I'm going to leave the landing lights on the whole time. General practice is anything below 10,000 feet, you should have your landing lights on. Although a lot of GA airplanes don't do that because they never go above 10,000 feet unless they absolutely have to. So our engine is started. Obviously, we've got very little fuel flow right now because we are totally at idle. We've got half a tank of gas on both sides. We've got a simulator passenger over here, even though we can't see him on the interior view. All our nav instruments look good. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to roughly 090 degrees because that is our takeoff from runway 9. And I hate when it does that. And let's take a look at our GPS here. Now, one thing you got to be careful about with this bad boy is it wants to start up in VLOC mode. And that means if you hit nav, it's going to do some crazy shit, like try and turn around and fly the ILS or whatever it is it's tuned into. So obviously we don't want it to do that, so we're going to go ahead and change that to GPS immediately. Zoom out a little bit here. Oops, that's in. You can see our flight plan route is going down here. And I've kind of made up an IFR route. There's not a whole lot of Victor Airways, believe it or not, between Miami and Key West. So I just kind of made it up with some intersections and that kind of stuff to keep the scenery interesting. Other than that, we will be flying mostly on GPS. do I have? Yeah, I do. I'm going to go ahead and put tune the ADF to marathon, which is 260. Oops. There we go, so now it's active. It won't show here on the ground. But when we get in the air, that will point directly to 0. I'll put 113.5 in our nav radio, simply because that is the VOR closest to the Key West International Airport. I wouldn't call it close, it's certainly not on the field, but it's close enough to get us a good DME. And if our GPS goes to shit, then we can use that to track the radials. There is no ILS. We're going to be flying an RNAV approach. This is what it looks like. We're going to go into Giselle, which is the initial approach fix. Is actually, relatively speaking, right about here. 1500 is the altitude there. When we get down to Burpee, stays 1500 until the final approach fix, which is Key C, when it intercepts the glide path. The GPS will show glide slope, but it really should be showing glide path because it's a GPS approach, not an ILS approach. And if the sound cuts out like that, that means I'm focused on another window that you guys can't see, but hopefully I won't have to do that very much. I'll go ahead and tune this to the Key West VOR2, what is it, 113.5. So that's going to show up on this CDI here. Go ahead and turn on our flight director, and that's going to be it for now. You can see the flight director here, and we're basically ready to taxi. Now it sounded like we got some crazy ass taxi instructions. There's our purple line. Yes, I do cheat and use the purple line. Mostly because the taxiways don't line up with what's in the nav database and all that fun stuff. So we'll go ahead and release the parking brake, which is down here. And we're ready to taxi. We've already been cleared to taxi, so we'll get her going. One thing I'm doing right now that you can't see is I'm moving my joystick to the full extent, both elevator, ailerons, and rudder, because that does seem to smooth out the use of it in flight, although that might be my imagination. I'm not 100% sure, so we'll see. Unlike the Cessna, you do not have to ramp this guy up to any sort of crazy speed to get it taxiing at a decent rate. This should be a relatively short taxi because of where we're parked and the runway we're set to use to take off. And I'm actually quite surprised at the frame rates I'm getting, considering we're dead in the middle of Miami International, which is a handcrafted airport in the middle of Miami, which is a photogrammetry city, and we're using a fairly complex aircraft, at least compared to a 172. Nothing like a PMDG 747 or anything like that, but I'm quite pleased with the frames we're getting. Anything over 30 I'm very happy with. You really can't notice it visually, even if you are trying to. So that makes me happy. I am running an i5 10600K combined with a RTX 2070 Super. Once we get up in the air, we'll see that bump up to 50 and even 60 frames per second as we're flying over the Keys. So flaps are going out for takeoff. I've already performed the checks on the ailerons, elevator, and rudder. I'm not going to do a run up because frankly I've got all the damages and failures turned off, so there's really no point. I'll just be wasting everybody's time. And I do this for fun, not to scare the shit out of myself, so notice on this aircraft sometimes the brakes aren't super effective. I don't know if that's my controller though, so something to be aware of when you have a 90-degree turn coming up when you're getting off the runway or taxiing like we are now. Alright, so our flaps are set, everything's good to go. Let's just double check. We've got our squawk code set. We do not have our squawk code set. What is our squawk code? 6205. 205. Yeah, this aircraft doesn't automatically do it like some of the others. I don't know if it actually matters, but I like to be as realistic as possible when I'm flying these guys, especially IFR flights from point A to point B. So we'll go ahead and get lined up here. And for some reason it wants me to taxi in the wrong direction. Not going to do it. And there's our sunrise coming up over the east. Okay, our heading bug is set. Our flight trim is set. Our flaps are set. Everything is looking good. Still on the left tank. We'll leave it there for a while. So let's get this party started, shall we? I've never flown one of these Moonies in real life, but I like the flight model that Carenado has come up with for the simulator use. It's faster than a bat out of hell, but it doesn't want to slow down. So we'll deal with that. It's actually got speed brakes, believe it or not. Not all GA aircraft do. So we got a positive rate. We're going to go gear up. Get the nose down a little bit. Build up some speed. And get those takeoff flaps out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead and flip on the autopilot. Make sure we're in heading mode. And I'm going to try to get this set right. Damn it. So that'll back off on our climb rate and let us build up some actual speed. That beeping is the middle marker for the ILS coming back the other way. So we're looking good. A little bouncy on that climb. I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, I still have to play around with this autopilot and especially the altitude settings and how all that works. So that's going to set it at a climb rate. What I just did was armed the altitude, and it's going to set it at a climb rate of about 500 feet per minute. I'm going to increase that a little bit because this thing is just so fast. Let's go with a nice 800 foot per minute climb. And if everything goes as it should, we'll be climbing at 800 feet per minute. Going to go ahead and flick us over into nav mode, which will follow the flight plan route. Some amazing scenery here at downtown Miami. Still over 40 frames per second. I'm real happy about that. A little stuttery there. I suppose it's probably loading textures and whatnot. But I can live with it. I'm also in 1440p with just about everything turned to ultra. I did force it into a clear sky situation so we could get some nice outside visuals on our little trip here today. And you'll notice even at an 800 foot per minute climb rate, we're still getting some really good speed. This autopilot does have a tendency to porpoise, do S-turns around the route trying to get it nailed. I don't know if that's an issue with the aircraft or with Flight Simulator itself. We just have to see what future patches might hold. Oh, or worse, it might be realistic. Thanks, baby.
You're welcome.
So you can see here on our GPS, it's very crowded. I haven't figured out how to declutter this thing. If anybody knows that, I could maybe put a comment in the section down there. It's trying to go to the Dickey intersection right now from VKZ, which is a VOR that I did not tune in. Oh, and we just changed over on the flight plan. Southern part of Florida there. If we were a little more inland, we could see some agricultural fields and that kind of stuff, but we're out over the water right now. There's the sun coming up in the east, and yeah, we're up over 50 into 60 frames per second. So I'm really pleased. A lot of people are not happy with what they're getting. Granted, we've got a lot of water, which is helping, but even with just a 2070 Super, I'm real happy with the results I'm getting on this thing. Gonna go ahead and back the RPMs off just a little bit, mostly to cut the noise down. Let's go down to 2400-ish. And this thing is so sensitive to mixture, you've really got to keep an eye on that. During the climb, I usually watch the fuel flow, not the EGT, which is why we were losing speed there, because I hadn't leaned it. So once I get to a max fuel flow, which is ridiculously lean, there we go. No, okay, right about there. So we'll see our speed come back. We're almost at our altitude anyway. Once we go through 6,000, this should show that we're approaching our selected altitude, and it's going to grab it and capture it for us. It will, if memory serves. There we go, through 6,000. Yep, there's the capture. And I don't know if it's going to cut down to 500 feet a minute or not. Yeah, it looks like it is. Or maybe not. That's okay. This beast has more than enough power for what we're asking it to do right now. Still more leaning. Nice outside view. I like this paint job. You might have noticed I've got my ATC handed off to my co-pilot there, and they did change it, the settings in Flight Simulator to where if you have a female avatar. Okay. So I didn't check the clearance close enough. I don't know if that's our final altitude or not. It would make sense given our direction of flight, but that's fine. So at some point in time, they're probably going to clear us for the RNAV approach. Again, that's right here. into Key West. If they don't, then I'll request it.
For a time, there was a severe thunderstorm warning that expired about 20 minutes ago for Polk County, and the main threat there was some strong downburst winds, maybe 60, 70 miles an hour. Heavy rain over Sarasota now. That is
Yeah, and again with the altitude climb and intercept and hold, I don't know if it's user error or what, but anyway. So this is now pointing directly at Marathon. We're going to fly pretty close directly over it. This is pointing to Key West. See if we can get a bearing there. Should be right about somewhere in here. Okay, there we go. Yep, right there. So if we wanted to fly directly to that VOR, we could do it, but we're going to stick with the GPS. Alright, we're down 3 gallons, so going to go ahead and change. Oops, not off, other tank. That's probably the only time I'll have to do that for this particular flight until we check it for landing and go to the fullest tank at that point in time. Doesn't want more leaning. Yep. Now once we level out, I'm going to adjust our RPMs and manifold pressure so we don't get into the yellow over here. You can see with the weather set to clear, we've got a nice ground speed, and that's in a climb of 179 knots. We might get over 200 once we level off. Oh boy, I wish I had one of these in real life. So we'll definitely have to come back some on the manifold pressure, probably come back another 100 or so on the RPMs, again mostly for noise. Once we're level, I'll be using the exhaust gas temperature, EGT, to do my mixture with, not the fuel flow. And one thing I've noticed with this aircraft, once you go negative on the outside, you've got to watch icing, because I almost crashed the other night. I was flying in what looked like severe clear conditions at night, but I picked up a ton of ice, couldn't hold altitude or anything, so that'll at least keep our windscreen clear. But I do like to keep an eye on the wing every from now and then. Alright, so yep, we need to back on the power some. We're at 23. Let's go back to 22 inches of mercury here on the manifold pressure. See where that puts us. And we'll go back another couple notches on the RPMs. And so we're a little bit under 2300 and 22 inches. Exhaust gas temperatures a little off, so I'm going to just make it a little bit richer. I'd like to be right dead in the middle of that green arc. And other than that, at this point, it's a sightseeing tour until we start descending for landing. One thing I've noticed is that they tend to want you to descend faster than the 600 feet per minute, which is kind of a general guideline for unpressurized airplanes for passenger comfort. So we'll see what they give us. And yeah, we're at 190 on the ground speed. Our airspeed's getting dangerously close to that yellow arc, so I'm going to pull her back to 22 inches of mercury on the manifold pressure. There we go. Nope. A little more. There we go. And we'll see what we settle in at. Beautiful flight, beautiful scenery. I've actually flown into Key West a number of times in real life, not from Miami, from the Tampa area. But I'm doing Miami both to show off the Miami scenery and because it's a much shorter flight. Obviously, watching an airplane cruise on autopilot isn't the most exciting thing in the world. So we got Atlantic Ocean over there. At some point in time, it's going to turn into the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not sure where that dividing line is. And we've got the Keys over here. Beautiful area.
A president to rebuild our economy. A president for the middle class. Independence USA PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Yeah, it seems like we've settled in at, what is that? About 167, 168 knots indicated airspeed. So fast, but not in the yellow, even though it's smooth enough to go in the yellow. There's that O&E again.
Detectives are hoping some newly released photos may lead to some new steps. I would not consider a full case. I would consider a small case.
2 years have passed, yet no one has been arrested for the murders of David and Minus One.
I've got those annoying
Shot to death in our Clearwater.
labels turned off.
They noticed newspapers
So you actually have to look at the gauge to see what you're set at.
releasing 7 new photos in the hopes that someone will see something of significance.
Which is pretty darn realistic.
I recognize that, but I don't recognize it.
See if I can come back just a little bit more on the RPMs without losing a whole lot of speed.
We're not familiar with it.
Something they are certain of, this was not a random act of violence.
Definitely.
As you can see, we're at the bottom of the green arc that Mooney considers quote-unquote normal. I like backing off on it because it doesn't hurt our speed too much, but it does really cut down on the noise. Yeah, and here we go doing S-turns across the flight route again. One thing I haven't figured out, and maybe somebody who's watching knows how to do it, is how to get the wind direction and speed from the GPS. Obviously, it's calculating that internally, whether or not you can, it'll show it to you. I don't know. If it's there, I haven't found it yet.
They'll do the same with any new information that comes their way in the case.
So back on the tutorial side, this is a 1996 model, I think. So we are using all steam gauges. The GPS in the radio stack is all we've got as far as anything approaching a glass cockpit. We've got our engine RPMs, which is set by this. We've got our manifold pressure, which is the real indicator of power. Cylinder head temperature, we're good in the green there. Exhaust gas temperature, oil pressure, oil temperature. Everything's looking good. Outside air temperature, vacuum, VDC, you guys can read. This thing actually works. It's set for Greenwich Mean Time right now, so let's go to local time. Yeah, that's right about what I asked for when I set up the flight. Any ice building up? Nope, nothing on the wings. So we're in good shape. Take another outside view.
I flew combat missions under enemy fire, but that was my toughest day. Once again, our country is in crisis. Once again, I'm volunteering to serve.
Oh, you'll notice as we approach and land, I do have the new Key West payware package installed as well. It's really pretty slick, and it doesn't do jack squat nothing to your frame rates.
Your home and everything your family has worked for. Call them at Hartford 844-444-4444.
And as payware airports go, it was pretty inexpensive. I think it's less than $10. Okay, our DME here. For those not familiar with these old school instruments, oops, let's get that back. This is our DME. It's pulling its frequency off of here, which is nav 1, and that's showing us 83.3 miles, 150 knots. Well, we're not going straight towards it, so that would explain the delta between this and this. And that's about all there is to know about that. I always placarded my DME as in-op when I was taking a flight check, so that way they couldn't ask me to do a DME approach, even though I know how to do them. I was just being lazy. And of course, with these fancy new 2000 plus series, 2010 plus GPSs with their semi-precision approaches and all of that, that's new to me, and that's really kind of cool. But I'm old school. I prefer flying with the 6-pack right here.
New developments in the Breonna Taylor case. The grand jury transcripts will be released tomorrow.
You do have to buy the upgraded
Why the grand jury decided
from the base package, base simulator, to get the 6-pack in the 172. And a 172, I love it. That's what I owned. I owned a regular 172 in 1976, and then I had a 1981 172 RG, which is significantly more powerful, and obviously getting those landing gear out of the breeze helps a lot. Kind of wish I hadn't sold it, but I did, and now I'm disabled, so I probably couldn't use it anyway. Especially with avgas going between $5 and $7 a gallon now. That's crazy talk. Alright, so we're headed to Minate at this point. More outside views. That puppy's pretty loud.
The late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was laid to rest this morning. She was buried at Arlington National Cemetery next to her husband Martin, who died back in 2010. Ginsburg is the
now all of a sudden we've got 2 men in there.
The 87-year-old died 2 weeks ago from complications of metastatic
Or is that a woman?
cancer.
I'm not sure.
Ginsburg's possible
Not what I asked for, but whatever.
nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, met with several Republican senators today ahead of her confirmation hearing. Barrett came to Capitol Hill and was joined by Vice President Mike Pence and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Republicans are moving quickly to get Barrett seated on the nation's highest court. They plan to begin her hearings October 12th.
One thing I neglected to do. I lived a number of years in the Pacific Northwest, which, as you know, is quite rainy. So I just got in the habit of running with pitot heat on at all times, no matter what the weather was.
We all got to witness quite a homecoming, didn't we?
That's right. The landing on Florida soil. And in fact, to my right, John Cooper, the head coach of the Stanley Cup champion Lightning.
And with this bad boy and the experience I had the other night, as far as getting iced up in what otherwise appeared to be clear skies, although it was night. It's flying all the way to the intersection. It didn't take the shortcut turn. So there we go. Giselle is actually our initial approach fix on the chart. So at some point between now and then, we'll probably get not cleared for the approach. They won't be until they hand us off to the tower for that. But we'll be told to fly direct to Giselle in anticipation of the RNAV GPS approach, which is where we're going anyway, so that works.
The picture quality is incredible. I feel like I'm in a movie.
Oh, and I was saying earlier, this bad boy does have speed brakes. They're right here. They're tiny, and it actually does show an animation. I'll try to show that when the time comes. But they do a really spectacular job of bleeding off some speed, helping you descend without shock cooling the engine. S turns across the flight route. Beautiful. I don't know if we'll be able to see it from this altitude, but we should be coming up on the 7 Mile Bridge pretty soon. I've flown over it at lower altitudes. I don't think it's photogrammatically realistic, and nobody's obviously made a Keys expansion pack to include it, but I believe it's still the longest bridge in the United States. So everything's still looking good. As far as these gauges go, we're straight and level at 8,000 feet. Our airspeed's still in the green. And the autopilot's doing its thing.
When it comes to being on budget, I lead the charge. And for this multitasking number cruncher, time is money. So no more chasing sales. Because at Floor & Decor, I get rock bottom prices on top quality products. And with free in-store design services, I score expert advice and project planning. Not like free with purchase either. Like free.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and request
Time well spent.
the RNAV approach. There we go.
Live at the airport, you're looking at the Stanley Cup champs in the trolley right behind me. They are about to depart the airport. We see all the players and coaches reunited with families just moments ago here on the tarmac. They are loaded up in these open air trolleys. We have actually Lord Stanley's Cup in this first trolley leading the way.
Which, like I said, we're headed there anyway, because that's what was on our flight plan.
As they are loaded up with family, they are ready to drive on down to Amalie Arena for a private celebration on the
So I'll go ahead and get that set up over here.
return.
It might already be, but
Kids after 2 months away in a bubble city. What a moment
doesn't hurt.
right here.
So we hit our procedures button.
Loaded up,
We're going to go ahead
and they're going to drive
and select the approach.
celebration here tonight. And as they do,
And RNAV 7, nope, that's wrong.
cup right there, sitting on the lap of, that looks like, there I am, lifting up the cup, and you're getting live pictures here, of course, as this team, along with Captain Steven Stamkos here in this first trolley, preparing to head down the street. But they have just had a very emotional reunion on the tarmac moments ago. In fact, we'll show you some video of that as they deboarded the plane. And they came, of course, Steven Stamkos.
Yeah, I've noticed right in this area they do a lot with the very rapid handoffs.
It has been quite the run.
I don't think we're outside the ADIZ, which is the Air Defense Identification Zone, but I'd have to check a chart to be sure.
What a run it has been, and what a run it has been for owner Jeff Bennett, who has stood by this team, keeping the stars in place, aligning what has been one of the most talent-filled rosters we have ever seen. And the owner spoke with reporters just moments ago about the accomplishment.
You know, I've never won the cup before, so we're going to have to see where that goes over the next few days and weeks. We're going to enjoy that.
When we do get cleared to descend, I'm going to go ahead and set it for 1,000 feet per minute, although real world considerations, I'd prefer to keep that at 600 or less, but ATC has a tendency to dump you into an altitude,
What he will do with the cup once he gets it, how about
so I'd rather get there too soon than too late.
the owner of the Lightning finally able to touch Lord Stanley's Cup for the first time. It has been a long run for this team, so many close calls, and finally they have been able to do it. Back out here live as the trolleys are just waiting to leave, and around this corner here, as they get set to go, there are a ton of Lightning fans outside the gates here at the private airline hangar, and they are waiting to see their Cup champion team.
They will probably clear us down to 3,000 first and then 1,500 after that.
Amalie Arena, and that's where we find our Kevin O'Donnell, who is live there waiting for their arrival, along with the Stanley Cup. Kevin?
That's right, Scott. Anxiously awaiting the arrival of the Stanley Cup champs and their family. This is where it all began here in Amalie Arena, and they just cannot wait to get back.
And there's Marathon. Like I said, we're going to fly pretty much directly over it, and there's our ADF. It's not off. It's pointed right at the Marathon NDB.
You know what? They're behind a little bit, man. You can't blame them. They want to celebrate as long as they can. They're expected to be here at Amalie Arena any 12:30 at this point, where they're going to hold a get-together.
All right, come on, Autopilot. So up with the S turns.
Even the sign glass that fans signed right before the playoffs got underway, and then accompanying them to
When we get closer, we'll put this into approach mode.
tonight really is a chance though for family,
But not yet.
and close friends to celebrate privately with the champs and get some nice pictures of the Lightning's new shiny hardware. The event starts at 7 o'clock.
And I do have those annoying labels turned off. I think I mentioned that. I also have this set to where the menu doesn't come up until you come all the way up here. Both of those are freeware add-ons.
Over Raymond James Stadium for another celebration at 7:30. We understand the tickets for that event sold out in 20 minutes.
All right, thank you, Kevin. So back out here at the airport as we are, they've just parked it perfectly right for you. There's the cup. You have Ryan McDonough with his daughter and son.
Oh, this is post the latest patch of today, which obviously emphasized Japan. I haven't gone over to Japan to see what's going on there, but there were a lot of other fixes and changes done. I noticed a lot of updated airports and other things as it was downloading the full thing, which came in right at about 8.4 gigabytes, somewhere in that area. I've got a gigabit connection, so I get a giggle out of sitting here watching that that download just scream. Yeah, there's where the 7 Mile Bridge should be, but I don't think we'll be able to see it from this altitude. Nice steady 50 plus frames per second. Again, the water helps with that.
Drink some water.
One thing I do like about having a retractable gear airplane is if your engine ever did take a shit and you had to ditch, it's going to be much safer to do with the gear retracted than with a fixed gear sticking out. That's probably going to cause you to flip when you hit the water. But I have failures turned off, so that's not going to happen. But in real life, there's no such thing as turning off failures. Okay, time to switch the fuel back.
Trina.
Yeah, we still haven't quite gotten the marathon. It's over here somewhere.
Why are you always getting in trouble?
Joe Biden will help us get ahead. A tax cut for the middle class, more money in our pockets, tax credits to help small businesses get back on their feet, a plan to make education more affordable, buy American to create good paying jobs, a president to rebuild our economy, a president for the middle class. Independence USA PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising. Because Ford trucks are built for this. You made Ford America's best-selling brand. Now get up to $11,000 in total savings on Ford F-150. Only at your local Ford dealer.
At AC1, buy an energy-saving AC system for $34.90. Just $34.90 with 0% finance. And we'll include a free UVC germicidal light to help kill bacteria and viruses in your home. Only from AC1 Heating and Cooling.
Because those games, I mean, they took years off of my life, especially the overtime.
Oh, all of us do. It was a nail biter for everybody, but the Bolts are Stanley Cup champions. And now let the celebrations at home begin.
Oh, and oh yeah, the Lightning won Stanley Cup. Woohoo!
We think it will be. We'll continue and we'll grow.
And we got Tom Brady.
Something more.
So if the Bucks do make it to the Super Bowl, I believe that will be the first time that the host city's team.
Violence will not be allowed or tolerated in our city, period. We have made it this far, and we're not going to go backwards.
And St. Pete's mayor puts his foot down over protests.
At any rate, what I was saying is if we do manage to make it to the Super Bowl,
Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I'm Kelly Rain.
so we'll go at 1,000 feet per minute down to 3,000 feet. I don't know if we'll even make it all the way there. Oop, back off on the power. I'll show you those speed brakes in action. Here's what they look like, and watch what they do to the speed. It's just absolutely incredible, even though they look like they're only about 6 inches wide.
Fans in Thunder Alley reacted just about the same way as they watched the Bolts claim the cup on the big screens. And I want to show you this as well.
Yeah, coming back even more on the power.
A whole lot of excitement as well. Not only did their spouses just become champions.
Obviously, we want to keep the speed up. That is the whole point of traveling in an airplane. But
That just happened moments ago in a special gathering.
I want it to stay out of the yellow and not shock cool the engine at the same time.
Arena coming up within the hour. Meantime, as for the team, they arrived back in town just a short time ago with, there it is, the cup and tilt. Captain, of course, Steve Stamkos, the first to step up.
Yep, while I was doing that, we passed Marathon. That's now pointing behind us.
Now they can sit back and reflect on what's truly been an amazing run for this franchise and this community. You know, for many fans, it's been a whirlwind of emotions here. There's probably many that are still a little dreary-eyed after that night last night all across the Tampa Bay area. Certainly a moment to be proud of for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and fans have been turning out to show their support as well. Fox 13's Kimberly Quizon is live now from Amalie Arena, where a lot of people, Cam, are just going, did that really happen last night? Were we dreaming?
Yep. As you can see, there's Giselle. We're going to want to be after Giselle. They're going to give us 1,500 feet. Let me pull that chart back in. There's Giselle. They're going to give us 1,500 feet to Burpee. It stays 1,500 feet all the way to the final approach fix, which is Kesey.
After staying up late to watch this win, fans ventured out early in hopes of winning big and finding both Stanley Cup gear.
It's been a whirlwind of emotions. I've cried, I've laughed. I mean, it's very, very exciting.
Melissa McAdams' sons wanted a hat and t-shirt, the same the Bolts wore.
Marathon behind us. There's the runway right there.
Success, she has nothing but gratitude for the team.
Thank you guys so much for all the sacrifice that you did being in that bubble. And just thank you for bringing the cup home to Tampa Bay.
During a time
Okay, altimeter stayed the same.
the Stanley Cup has brought relief, even
Yep.
to the team's
There's the altitude. Oops.
As people are connecting with the team is through merchandise, and they're showing their colors. It's a little light in this dark time, which is great. At least for me personally, and I know for all of our employees, it's been great because we've actually had employees come back and work for us because they were sidelined on a pause with the pandemic.
How far are we from Lucille? Oh, still got a good ways to go.
It's our time, it's been since 2000.
So I'll back off on that descent rate a little bit.
And it's got the best fan base here.
At Heads and Tails in West Kennedy, it's nothing but joy and thanks to the entire team.
I'll give credit to the owners.
No, not up.
Phoenix have done a great job of putting the team in a position for the fans.
This is kind of a pain in the ass.
That is absolutely true, and there's a lot of fans still getting ready to celebrate today with the team as the team invites their family and their closest members of their friends here. But there is something that the city of Tampa wants to remind people. They want
Getting the mouse put in just the right position, that it's not, that it's doing hundreds when you want hundreds and down when you want down.
That's the only incident that TPD really saw, but they say tomorrow, just kind of keep it in check and celebrate safely. Mark, back to you.
We love the energy and excitement, but we don't need to be damaging anything or certainly hurting
Alright.
anybody. So,
A little more on the mixture, coming down through 4,000 feet.
Stanley Cup champs, it's
Back above freezing.
live picture. The Lightning are making their way now toward Amalie Arena.
I didn't check the density altitude compared to what's outdoors, but it's Florida, so it's generally higher than the actual altitude.
City for a celebration with their family and the rest of the Lightning family. The families and the players and the coaches are all on board.
Yeah,
these
let's
troubles.
back off on the
They're
power a
going to
little
the
bit
city. They're gonna have
more.
a Big celebration at Amalie. in
Go
just
down
a
to
few
16
minutes.
inches.
And we will be covering this all along the way. Just seeing them get off the plane and greeting their family was just priceless because they have been through so much, and this really has been just an extraordinary
Yeah, we're currently in the left tank. General guideline is to switch over to the fullest tank, but at this point I don't think it's going to matter even if we do go a little below what we got in the right.
And I will still send them some of the wonderful products that we promised, beer, Cuban bread, Cuban sandwiches, cigars, all the things that we're known for here in the Tampa Bay area. So I'll send those. So maybe
All right, we got 11 miles to go to Burpee, where we want to be at 1,500 feet.
And you heard her say she is still.
Let me give it just a little more descent.
Dallas owes us some craft beer and some candy.
Nope,
apples
more.
and a brisket. However, the mayor did point out we get the cups and we win, obviously. Well, now to the celebrations kicking off tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock. That's when there's going to be a boat parade traveling.
Which means backing off on the power even more. There's Key West off in the distance. Can't really see the airport yet though.
It just is so perfect for the Tampa Bay area. Everybody's socially distancing, we hope.
It looks like they might have messed with some of the distance draws in the latest patch.
Tickets for that, they're already gone. They sold out.
Because with the settings I've got, of course I didn't even check them to see if they had changed anything.
No tickets now, but limited tickets.
But that should be a little bit clear, although it will give us higher frame rates.
Return coming up in just a few minutes in sports. Now, that celebration at Ray J tomorrow night will be the first test of new rules at the stadium. It was limited to around 16,000 fans, already sold out.
All right, our final approach course is going to be 273.
Will be required at all times. The Bucks game on Sunday at Ray J will be limited to less than 10,000. Longtime season pass holders in pods of 6 will be allowed in.
And not to sell tickets for any reason, they'll need to sell them in those complete pods. Throughout this process, our number one
There we go.
has been the safety of everyone else.
Now, the rules also apply to the USF East Carolina game. That's on October 10th. No tailgating will be allowed at Ray J for the Bucks or the Bulls. The Bucks website has all the new stadium rules, just all right there if you want to take a look at it.
Indeed. All right, Tampa International Airport.
Once we get just a little bit closer, I'll switch it over to approach mode on the autopilot.
19 tests for all passengers. Officer Chief Carenado Mooney explains tonight the options and how long the testing is going to stick around.
2020 redefined travel norms for airline passengers. Tampa International Airport is adapting once again, this time with COVID-19 testing for passengers who want to know their results.
I had to make a doctor's appointment because I have limited independent senior living. This would have been so much more convenient.
For me, I always take the 15 minutes. If I need a pay.
TPA partnered with Baycare Health System for this 30-day pilot program for
Just
all passengers.
putting a little more mixture in as we get lower.
COVID's not going away.
And there we are, level at 1,500.
We have to figure out how to adapt our lives to be safe.
Travelers can find the testing
Coming up 3 miles on Burpee, so let's go ahead and put us into approach mode here. What that's going to do is it's going to fly the approach just like what the approach plate says. So 1,500 to Key, then it'll intercept the glide path, and I'll turn the autopilot off somewhere around 500 feet.
Travelers can get tested within 3 days before or after their flight.
They just need more knowledge. If they know that they're positive, they won't go on the plane. If they know they're negative, they're going to go see their friends and loved ones and say, I'm good.
Airport leaders say they hope this option will help restore some confidence in travel safety.
You know, we're scalable, we're flexible, we'll see how it goes, but we think that this will be something that other airports around the country will adopt as well.
Reporting at Tampa International Airport, Brianna Ordondo, Fox 13 News.
All right, Brianna, thanks. The testing area is going to be open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. That process, they were told, is going to take only about 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. So make sure you arrive early if you want to get tests before you fly.
Well, after several pests being encountered during protest intake, Mayor Kreisman.
All right, going to slow down a little bit. The gear speed is 140 knots.
They don't get out of control. And Paul, wow, you were right. We got the cold front and we got the Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah, it's a good combination.
Maybe a little far out to do that, but oh well.
It is still producing some areas. Here's a check on Sky Power. Patches of rain. Some heavy in Sarasota. There's more rain in the Gulf. That one goes through tonight. And then it's a couple of days. I think you're really going to like
see the field yet? It's right there. Alright, let's start getting prepped for landing. We'll put full RPM back in. Watch it, that doesn't do too much to the speed. This right here is a Navy base. In the wake of 9/11, I'm surprised they still let civilians fly this close. Oh yeah, I already looked at that. Once we send that back, we'll get prorated on that modem rental fee. Yeah, that's exactly what I told you it would be.
$94 and 97 cents.
The $15 is going away.
Well, this one
Okay. So there we are at Key C. I'm going to go ahead and get our landing gear going.
Well, it's not the kind of publicity that they do not want this publicity. Videos of diners disrupted, a gun being
Make sure we're still in approach mode. Yep, sometimes that has a tendency to want to change. All right, it's captured the glide path.
A protest and then counter-protest are supposed to happen this week. SWAT 13 Jeff Gesso reports the city wants everybody to know there's
All right.
no tolerance for violence. St. Pete Mayor Rick Kreisman issuing some harsh criticism Tuesday.
All right, let me get some speed brakes going
After videos of
so we can get that speed down.
harassing diners and guns being drawn have gone viral, having been
And then we'll get some flaps going.
If you intend to peacefully protest or counter-protest, have at it.
All right, first notch of flaps coming out.
Your knives or any other weapon you might have at home.
Yeah, and you can clearly see the field now.
Your cause by brandishing a knife or a firearm, or by giving someone the finger, crashing someone's dinner, or cursing at them and calling them names. Ahead of planned counter-protest rallies in downtown.
Beautiful morning for some sightseeing in Key West.
Policy for violence or destruction of property. I have not. Nor will
All right,
I ever
another notch of flaps.
an order to stand down.
Start slowing down to our final approach speed.
In fact, the city is encouraging citizens and businesses to press charges should they become victimized.
What we're telling people, if you're here peacefully protesting and you see someone...
Final notch of flaps.
Report it. If you're a business owner and they come onto your property...
And coming up on 500, so autopilot disengage.
If you give up the authority to remove it from your...
And I'll be hand flying the rest of the approach. Landing checks, gumps, gas is checked on the right tank. Undercarriage gears down. Prop is set to full. GUM mixtures rich. And S is for seatbelts. So we are ready to land.
Charles, thanks. And police say that they're going to have more uniformed officers visible this weekend in an effort to try to keep...
Can't really see the
Just try that
glide
conditioner
path
on,
lights.
Bob. Delicious.
I think that's got something to do with how the sim is handling the graphics.
What is it?
Let's try some, eh? Just get it.
But this is the payware version of the airport, so as I'm landing and taxiing, just take a look at what's going on. Alright, nice, good landing speed, good altitude. We are good to go for our final landing.
I'm gonna watch the debate over at Heat. He just got some new green. I'm gonna go try that out.
northwest wind all day, so it's certainly not going to be
Friend Kim's gonna be over there till like,
Alright,
might
power
not
to
last there too
zero,
long.
hold it off.
She usually ends up scooting
Don't
over until
balloon.
she's on my lawn. She's one of those when she's drinking. I'm like,
Ah,
okay,
yes.
here
Nice, perfect landing.
we go. Okay, go, go.
Whoa, I don't know what that was all about. Maybe a gust of wind.
Locally heavy again today. There's some areas of rain now. The heaviest is not really around Tampa Bay. It's in sections of Hardee, DeSoto counties, moving into Highlands County, rain up by Lake Wales and Bartow. Frostproof has rain.
I have a tendency of trying to get off the runway as soon as possible, so when I come up on my turns, I'm frequently going too fast.
To the northeast, other showers are near Mayaca City and a big batch of rain from near Venice to Sarasota. All of this has to go through tonight before we really enjoy the lower humidity tomorrow. There's even more rain that's kind of sitting out in the Gulf, and some of that rain could impact our northern counties later tonight. My feeling is
Bach.
Okay.
Heading out of work, so I'm gonna get away.
For some reason, the
See you later.
co-pilot doesn't want to do
Yeah, my
that,
friend
so
Pam was like, you wanna come watch the debate with me? I'm like, you're a Biden fan. There's no fucking way I'm gonna watch the debate with you. There's no.
I would, just to be like,
No, no,
They're
because
still
we'll
gonna
end
vote
up,
for this
we'll end up in a fight. I'm like, no.
bus, get off the freaking taxiway.
70s and low 80s around Tampa Bay. Right now it is 65 degrees in Tallahassee with a 56.
Good
dew
grief.
point. I can make a case. It'd be kind of
Alright,
chilly.
I'm just gonna go around your ass.
Nights up in the state capitol and over by Gainesville and Jacksonville.
Flaps coming up.
City. The winds now beginning to shift to north and northwest as the cold front goes by. Cold front goes by late tonight and tomorrow. The thing is, we're going to enjoy some lower humidity, but you have to remember the calendar. It is still late September / early October, so moisture is going to lurk just south of us, and I think over time, the moisture will kind of pivot back at us from the east and southeast. I mean, even Thursday.
Alright,
there could be a couple
well thanks for
showers.
watching, hope you enjoyed that.
Weekend, especially Sunday.
If you liked it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm still trying to build a channel. I, as of yet, have no video editing skills whatsoever, but that's something I'm working on.
60s and tomorrow, during the afternoon, only upper 70s and low 80s. We're still watching the tropics. There'll be an area of low pressure.
I do know how to make out. There's our parking spot right there.
Slow process for now. It does not look like a threat to Florida, but we'll watch it. This is a prime spot with cold fronts moving south. A lot of times the moisture kind of pools ahead of the front. And this is a very common area that tropical development to happen in October. We'll watch it, but as of now,
And there we go.
no immediate threats.
Thanks for watching. Have a great day.
Thunderstorms ending. We're down to 69. Tomorrow, a completely different day. Developing sunshine, bit breezy, and much